Should you tell your partner everything? Short answer, no. And here is why. Your partner is the individual that you are.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found your way here. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so that you don't miss any of our deep dives into real, raw, and relatable relationship topics. So today we're asking a big, somewhat controversial question, and that is, should you tell your spouse everything? So I've stitched together some videos that we're all going to watch together, and I'll be giving my thoughts on the other side. So please make sure you watch until the end. Without further ado, let us dive into the video.
Should you tell your partner everything? Short answer, no. And here is why. Your partner is the individual that you are in a relationship with. They are not your best friend. There are certain things that you should and should not share with your partner. You should be able to feel comfortable and confident in telling your partner just about anything. But of course, there's certain things they just don't need to know. There can be certain things that happened in your past or occurred that are just not pertinent into this new relationship that you're with this individual, and you don't need to feel obligated into disclosing that information. There's an example that Steve Harvey gave a few years ago, and it goes like this. A woman should not tell her man everything, and this is why. Woman comes home from work and explains to her husband that a work colleague is flirting with her. The next morning, you're going to find her husband at her place of employment, and she's not going to be working there anymore. I absolutely loved that example. But of course, there's other reasons on why you should not disclose everything to your partner. And if you do feel you need to talk to someone about other things that you're just not comfortable or confident in speaking to your partner about, just know that it's okay to go to a family member or a best friend. If you feel there's certain things that have absolutely no effect on your relationship that you're not disclosing to your partner, and you feel it's going to be either pointless or just going to cause problems between you and your partner if you do mention it, you don't have to mention it at all. I know a lot of people are going to come at this video in attack mode, but I also know that each and every single individual has kept something from their partner. I also want you to understand that I do think it's important to speak to your partner and tell them about your past, but disclosing every detail is not important. So you can definitely be honest, just not too honest.
Should you tell your partner everything, or should you leave some secrets to yourself? Now I'm going to tell you therapeutically from a therapist, licensed therapist, it is okay to keep some things to yourself. There's some things from your past that you may not be ready to disclose or need to disclose because it is not pertinent to this relationship. Now, if there's something that has to do with your partner, yes, absolutely. But if not, you have to use discernment to know if it is going to be beneficial to this relationship if you desire for it to continue on.
Should I tell my wife everything? This is a question that I received from a man. The answer is no. No, you shouldn't tell your wife everything. And here's why. You are a sovereign being. And there are times in your life when you need to be just with you. This doesn't mean hiding. This doesn't mean manipulating. This doesn't mean cheating. This doesn't mean lying. This doesn't mean going outside the agreements of the relationship and the container. What it means is that you have every right as a man to be in your sovereignty, as a human, to be with your own thoughts, things that are just reserved for you. And sometimes there may be elements of your relationship that you need to take to a group of friends, to a band of brothers, to other men that can challenge you, call you forward in healthy ways, see you, meet you with non-judgment, and also ask you to be a better version of yourself. And before you may bring that to your wife, it may be useful to share that in a space that is not connected to the depth of intimacy that you share with your wife. It's not to say that you can't share depth with her. It's not to say that you cannot share intimacy with her. Absolutely you can. And how you do that, the timing of that, and how you relate that to yourself really, really matters. If you're sharing from a place of insecurity, no. If you're sharing from a place of strength and poise and clarity and openness, then yes. And ultimately, you make the decision.
Let me be straight with you. You should not tell your partner every single thought you have. In fact, the belief that you should be able to tell your partner every thought that crosses your mind can actually cause a lot of problems. Some examples of thoughts that your partner probably doesn't need to know. Sometimes you think about what life would be like if you'd married your ex. Sometimes you look at your partner and wish they looked a little more like they did when you first met. You burn out listening to them sometimes. Their problems can be kind of boring. These are all totally normal thoughts. You're not a bad person for thinking them, and they don't say anything bad about your relationship. But they are needlessly hurtful to your partner without adding any type of benefit in terms of mutual understanding or connection. So, yes, it's okay to keep these thoughts to yourself.
Okay, interesting. We've got different perspectives. Now, I know some people are going to have a strong gut reaction to that. Some will say absolutely, full transparency, or it's not real love. And others might say some things are better left unsaid, right? But the truth, it's a lot more nuanced than that. So let's talk about it. What does healthy communication really look like in a marriage? Where is the line between openness and oversharing? And what about privacy? Is it ever okay to keep something to yourself? We're going to unpack all of it. So let's get into it. So, first things first, let's talk about this idea of telling your spouse everything. In an ideal world, yes, full transparency sounds great. No secrets, no lies, just raw honesty all the time. But in real life, relationships are complex. People have pasts, people have private thoughts, people grow and change. The question isn't should you tell your spouse everything? It is also why you would or wouldn't. What's the motive behind sharing or withholding? So let's paint a picture here. Let's say you ran into your ex at the grocery store, right? It was innocent, a quick hello, and that's it. Now, should you tell your spouse? Maybe, but ask yourself, are you telling them to be transparent or because you're feeling guilty? Are you keeping it from them because you're trying to avoid conflict or because it truly didn't mean anything? That's the kind of self awareness that matters, right? With that said, let's be clear. In a healthy marriage, transparency is key to building and maintaining trust. So if your spouse feels like they have to pry the truth out of you or constantly wonder what you're hiding, that creates distance. So being open about things like your financial situation, your emotions, your daily life, even when it's uncomfortable, creates safety. Now, your spouse should be the person who knows you most deeply, right? So, for example, if you're struggling with something like anxiety or burnout and you're bottling it up, thinking you're protecting your spouse, what actually happens is the distance grows. They feel shut out. Telling them what's really going on helps you stay connected and it allows them to support you. So, in other words, honesty nurtures intimacy. Now, let's make an important distinction. Privacy is not the same thing as secrecy. Now, privacy is about boundaries, healthy, respectful space within the relationship, while secrecy is about deception, hiding something that could affect your partner or the relationship. So, you are still your own person in a marriage. Never forget that. You are allowed to have private thoughts, a personal journal, or some solo time, but that doesn't mean you're hiding anything. So, for example, maybe if you like to take solo walks to clear your head and that's when you process your thoughts, you don't need to tell your spouse every single detail of those walks. But if you're walking and texting someone behind their back, now it's crossed into secrecy. So ask yourself, is this privacy or secrecy? One protects the relationship while the other harms it. Now, there are other times when not telling your spouse something can be damaging, even if your intention wasn't to lie. So, withholding important information, especially over time, creates what we call micro betrayals. They might not seem like a big deal in the moment, but they chip away at trust. Say your spouse asks you, "Did you talk to your mom about our financial issues?" And you say no when you actually did. Even if you thought it was harmless or meant well, the lie, even a small one, becomes a crack in the foundation. If they find out later, they are not just upset about what you did, they're upset that you didn't tell them. Being honest, even when it's uncomfortable, shows respect for your partner. Now, let's flip the script. There are times when not telling your spouse everything is actually okay. You don't have to narrate every thought you've ever had. Not everything you feel or remember needs to be spoken aloud. Sometimes silence is wise. Sometimes oversharing can actually burden the relationship. So, if I was to give an example, let's say you had a dream about an old flame. It meant nothing. You're not in touch with them and you didn't act on it. If you know telling your spouse would only hurt them and stir up insecurities, and there's no truth or action behind it, it might be kinder not to share it. The key here is intention. Are you keeping it to protect your spouse and your relationship, or are you keeping it to protect yourself and your ego? Another example could be maybe you're processing something painful from your childhood. You're still working through it and you don't feel ready to share. That's not deception, that's discernment. It's okay to take your time. So instead of asking, should I tell my spouse everything? The better question might be, do we have a relationship where openness is safe? Creating a culture of openness means both people feel safe to share without being judged, attacked, or punished. That's the real goal. And this doesn't happen overnight. It takes mutual effort, patience, and a whole lot of sympathy. You have to listen when your spouse tells you hard truths. You have to resist the urge to react harshly, and you have to model honesty yourself. So, for example, if your spouse tells you they feel unappreciated or they've been struggling with temptation, your first instinct might be to get defensive or shut down. But if you can sit with that discomfort and really hear them, you open the door to deeper connection. So, marriage isn't about perfection, it's about building trust over time, and trust is built through honesty, yes, but also through how we respond to that honesty. So, should you tell your spouse everything? Not necessarily, but you should strive for honesty, transparency, and mutual respect. Absolutely. Healthy marriages aren't built on full disclosure of every fleeting thought. They're built on intentional trust, emotional safety, and discernment. You are allowed to have your own inner world, and your spouse is allowed to be your confidant, your partner, your teammate, not your judge or your interrogator. So, on that note, I would like to thank everyone for spending this time with me. If this conversation made you think, if it resonated with you in any way, please hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I want to know, what do you think about this topic? Have you ever struggled with what to share or keep to yourself in your marriage? I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Bye bye.